somewhere in a university library. Right now, a student is taking notes on a story that never happened. It goes like this. Before money existed, human beings traded directly with one another. A farmer with extra wheat would find a shoemaker who needed wheat and wanted to sell shoes. Simple. Except it wasn't simple at all. What if the shoemaker didn't want wheat that week? What if he wanted fish instead? Economists call this the double coincidence of wants. And the story says money was invented to solve it. Gold, coins, currency, all of it. A clever human workaround for the clumsiness of barter. It's in your textbooks. It's in Econ 101 lectures. Central bankers still reference it in speeches. And as far as anyone can tell, it never actually happened. Welcome to Capital Historian, where power, wealth, and history converge. Not once, not anywhere. No archaeologist has ever unearthed a barter-based economy that evolved into a monetary one. No anthropologist has documented a society that ran primarily on direct goods-for-goods exchange before adopting currency. The idea was written down by Adam Smith in 1776 in The Wealth of Nations, and he offered no evidence for it. None. He simply assumed it must have happened because it made intuitive sense. For 250 years or more, the world has repeated an assumption as if it were a fact. So here's the real question. If money wasn't invented to fix a barter problem that never existed, what was it actually built to do? And why would anyone want us to believe the comfortable version instead of the true one? To understand how deep this myth runs, you have to understand how good it feels to believe it. The barter story is elegant. It suggests money was born from cooperation, that human beings, independently and peacefully, arrived at a clever solution to a shared inconvenience. It's the economic version of a creation myth. And like most creation myths, it flatters us. It tells us the market came first, and government came later to formalize what people were already doing naturally. That story has been repeated so often it stopped sounding like a theory and started sounding like history. It's in the first chapter of nearly every economics textbook printed since the 19th century. It gets illustrated with cartoons. Cavemen trading chickens for arrowheads. Farmers hauling sacks of grain to trade for tools. It's clean. It's intuitive. It requires no further investigation. But that wasn't the real story. And the moment you start digging into what actually happened in the ancient world, the entire foundation starts to crack. Go back roughly 5,000 years back to the temple cities of ancient Mesopotamia. Uruk, Uar, the river-fed civilizations sitting between the Tigris and Euphrates. This is, by most accounts, where the earliest evidence of organized economic life on Earth survives. And what we find there isn't coins. It isn't shells or beads or gold-changing hands between neighbors. It's clay tablets, covered in tiny wedge-shaped marks. Ledgers. Temple administrators were recording who owe what to whom. Grain, livestock, labor, silver by weight. Years, sometimes over 1,000 years, before the first coin was ever struck anywhere in the world. Money didn't begin as a physical object you could hold. It began as a number, an entry in someone else's book. And once you see that, the barter problem Adam Smith described simply dissolves. People in these communities weren't strangers awkwardly trying to match up their needs on a given afternoon. They were neighbors, relatives, members of the same temple economy, embedded in long-running relationships of trust and obligation. If you needed grain today, you didn't need to find someone who happened to want exactly what you had to offer in return. You simply took the grain, and it went into the ledger. You'd settle up eventually, in whatever form made sense, whenever the debt came due. There was no coincidence it wants to solve, because nobody was trading like strangers. They were keeping score like family, which raises an uncomfortable follow-up question. If early money wasn't a tool for trade between equals, who was actually keeping that ledger? And what did it mean to owe something to the person holding the pen? This is where the story stops being about economics and starts being about power. The ledgers of ancient Mesopotamia weren't kept by farmers. For farmers, they were kept by temples, by palaces, by the earliest institutions of centralized authority in human history. And whoever controls the ledger controls something far more valuable than grain. They control the definition of what is owed to whom and what happens to you if you fail to pay it. This is not a small detail. This is the entire hidden architecture of the ancient economy. Consider what debt actually meant in these societies. It wasn't an abstract number. Law codes from the period, the famous Code of Hammurabi among them, include detailed provisions on what happens when a debt goes unpaid. In many cases, a person could pledge not just property, but their own labor, their own children, their own future freedom. Interest, in some of the earliest recorded forms, was a modern financial innovation. It existed in Mesopotamia thousands of years before anyone minted a coin, and it could compound a family's debt until it consumed generations. The ledger wasn't neutral bookkeeping. It was leverage. And here's the historical irony that almost nobody talks about. The very institutions we credit with inventing money, the temples and palaces of the ancient world, weren't building a tool to help ordinary people trade more efficiently. They were building a system to track what the population owed the state, and to enforce collection when it didn't get paid. So if money didn't emerge to serve merchants and farmers, who was it actually built for? The soldiers and the men who commanded them. Fast forward now, past 1,000 years of debt ledgers and temple economies, to a place called Lydia in what's now Western Turkey, somewhere around the 7th century BCE. This is where, as far as the archaeological record shows, the first true coins appear. Small lumps of electrum, a naturally occurring gold-silver alloy, stamped with an official mark to guarantee their weight and value. Here's what's strange. If coinage was invented to make trade easier for peaceful merchants, you'd expect it to emerge in the great trading hubs of the ancient world, the bustling ports, the crossroads of commerce. It doesn't. It emerges in a militarized kingdom, almost exactly at the moment that kingdom needed to pay large numbers of mercenary soldiers. And that detail changes everything. Think about the problem coinage actually solved. A mercenary fighting far from home doesn't want a promise. He doesn't have decades of trust built up with the kingdom's ledger keepers. He doesn't have kinship ties or a long-standing relationship with the local temple. He wants something portable, something universally recognized, something he can carry across a border and still have it be worth exactly what it claims to be worth. Coinage wasn't democratizing trust between neighbors. It was solving the opposite problem. How do you move obligation across distances too vast and between people too unfamiliar? For personal trust to reach, from Lydia, coin money spreads rapidly through the Greek world. And again, follow where it actually shows up first. Not quiet farming villages, city-states, military powers, places raising armies, collecting taxes, and paying soldiers who expected hard, verifiable payment in hand. Money wasn't a convenience the market invented for itself. It was infrastructure built by the state for the state's own purposes: war, taxation, and control at a scale that personal relationships could never manage. The market didn't build money. The market inherited it. That's the turning point. Everything you thought you understood about where currency came from, reverse it. Money isn't a neutral technology that emerged organically from commerce, which governments later regulated. It's the other way around. Money is a technology of centralized power, which commerce later learned to use. So, why does the barter myth persist? Why has a story with zero supporting evidence survived in economics textbooks for 2.5 centuries? Because the alternative is uncomfortable. If money emerged from trade, it belongs to all of us equally, a natural human invention born from cooperation, owned by no one in particular. But if money emerged from ledgers, debt, and the machinery of state power, then it was never neutral to begin with. It was designed, from its very origin, to track obligation and enforce collection on behalf of whoever was holding the pen. And that pattern didn't end in ancient Mesopotamia. It just changed hands. Temples gave way to palaces. Palaces gave way to kingdoms minting coin to pay their armies. Kingdoms gave way to nation-states issuing currency backed by their own authority. And today, the ledger keepers are central banks, financial institutions, and credit bureaus, recording in real time exactly what each of us owes, what we've paid, and what our access to the system depends on. Look at a modern credit score. It's not so different, structurally, from a clay tablet in a Mesopotamian temple, a record kept by an institution you don't control. That determines what you're allowed to access based on what you're judged to owe and how reliably you paid it. The technology changed almost beyond recognition. The underlying structure, someone holds a ledger, and a ledger holds power over you. never really went anywhere. That's the answer to the mystery we open with. Money was never invented to replace an inefficient barter system, because that system never existed. It was invented to make obligation visible, trackable, and enforceable at a scale no individual relationship could manage on its own. And the institutions that built the first ledgers, the ones who decided who owed what and what happened if you didn't pay, have been rewriting that same basic arrangement in different forms ever since. If institutions have been quietly writing the rules of power for 5,000 years using nothing more than a ledger and a claim on what you owe, it's worth asking where else that same pattern has been hiding in plain sight throughout history. That's exactly the kind of hidden system this channel exists to uncover. So if this kind of investigation is for you, consider subscribing to Capital Historian. There are many more stories like this one waiting to be found. Here's the thought worth sitting with. We tend to imagine money as something that happened to history, a background tool, invented once, used ever since, mostly unchanged in what it actually is. But money was never just a medium of exchange. From the very first clay tablet in the very first temple, it was a record of power, a way of making sure that what one person owed another could never quietly be forgotten. The coins changed, the paper changed, the numbers on a screen changed. But somewhere right now, there is still a ledger, and whoever is keeping it still holds more power over your life than you probably ever stopped to consider.